Hey, what's going on, guys? On today's project, I'm going to show you how I took this board here, which cost about $3, and turned it into this. Let's get into the video. For this project, you're going to cut around 10 6-inch pieces of the 1x2 horizontally. Then you're going to flip the board vertically and cut 45-degree miters to make the border. Okay, so we have our 1x2 right here. We're going to go ahead and start measuring out our 6 inches. So we'll go ahead and mark our increment right there. Got it. And let's head over to the saw. Okay, so we have our mark right here. We'll go ahead and get it lined up on the saw. And we'll go ahead and cut it. Okay, so we got our piece. We'll go ahead and cut about 10 or 12 more just like this, using it as a template, and we'll just keep rolling through them. So cut about 10 to 12 horizontal pieces. Depending on how big your numbers are, you might need to cut a few more or a few less. Next up, you're going to need a thin piece of wood as backing on which you can mount the horizontal pieces you just cut. So this is about 1/4-inch plywood, just a scrap piece I had laying around. Hopefully you have something similar. Next, you're going to need to cut your horizontal backing piece to size, just so you can accommodate all of those pieces. Using wood glue, I went and attached all of the horizontally cut 1x2 pieces to the backing piece of plywood, as you're seeing there. Then I went ahead and just made sure they were all flush with each other, using a board on both sides to make sure that any irregularities were taken care of. Once all the horizontal pieces are mounted, you're going to flip the 1x2 vertically and go ahead and cut the frame at 45-degree angles like you're seeing there. Obviously, you're going to mount the two at the top first, and then you're going to need to do some fine-tuning on the longer sections to make sure it fits in a nice frame that has clean miters and tight angles. So here I am cutting the longer segment of the frame. Once I cut it, I went and made sure that it was flush and it looked good, it was the right size, and once that was confirmed, I used it as a template on the 1x2 to cut the next piece so that they were the exact same size. So here I am just double checking that everything fits right and everything's squared. Once it is, your next step is going to be to please smash the like button. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm tremendously. And come on, it's Christmas. So next up, I painted all of the vertical frame pieces beforehand because that was way easier than trying to do it retroactively. So painted them there and then went ahead and got them mounted. So to attach the vertical frame, I went ahead and applied a pretty good amount of wood glue and got it preliminarily in place just with the glue alone. Then I took a brad nailer about 2 inches and went ahead and applied basically 2 on each side there. So again, putting on some wood glue there, attaching the vertical frame piece, and then grab my brad nailer, 1 on each side, and that held it in place pretty good. So it's going to be the exact same process for the longer frame pieces. The only difference is you'll use a little bit more wood glue and you'll actually have the miters to attach. So make sure you include some in the corners there, push it into place, and then it's going to be the same as before. Grab your brad nailer and hit a couple. I think I used about 4, and I also attached 1 at the miter joint. And here I am doing that on the other side there with the same brad nailer step. So as you can see, it's actually pretty clean miters there. Got to clean up the glue, but overall it looks pretty good. So I had a little bit of wood stain left over from my DIY mailbox project, which I'll leave somewhere over here. So check that out if you're interested. Let's get back to it. So the last thing I'm doing here is I'm hitting it with a little bit of stain. And this is just the stain that I had from a previous job, which is this Varathane. But I've only used a very little bit on here, I don't want it to be super dark. And here I am continuing to put a light coat of stain on until I was happy with the coverage. So that's kind of what we're going for. So we'll go ahead and hammer those in, see how we look. Okay, so I had the numbers placed and I basically put them where I wanted them positioned, gave them a couple hits with the hammer to establish the nail marks. And then what I'm doing now is my mounting screws, I'm going to go ahead and hide directly beneath the numbers. So I took these, I just made the mark there. I did the same thing with the 4 down here. So I established where the nails were going to attach to the wood. And then I went down the middle and attached my mounting screw. So because the 8 wasn't concealing a screw, I went and attached that one beforehand. Then I went ahead and pre-drilled the screw holes for the mounting screws. Then I went ahead and sunk the screws in before I went ahead to get them in place for where I was going to mount them to the house. So once we got it level in the position we wanted, I went and took those screws that I preset and just tapped them to mark the actual drill locations. Then I went ahead, took a drill bit, and drilled through the siding so that I could go ahead and mount it with screws later on. So once I had the screws lined up with where I pre-drilled, I went ahead and sunk those into the house. I was just careful not to over-tighten to prevent any kind of strain on the siding. So once the wooden frame was attached to the house, I went ahead and nailed the numbers to the actual wooden frame and completed the project. If this project helped you out or gave you some ideas, I'd appreciate it if you could drop a like down below. Also comment on what you might have done differently. Additionally, if you want to subscribe to the channel, it really helps me out. I drop new DIY/home renovation projects pretty much weekly. So it helps out my channel. I appreciate it, and thank you for watching.